Hello, everyone, and welcome to Totally Unacceptable. I'm your host, Ed Clementi. For those of you that are new here, after a successful 20-year career where I discovered that a strong leadership style was the key to my success, I realized there's a widespread issue that I'm deeply passionate about addressing: unacceptable leadership that is unfortunately all too common. This podcast, well, it's dedicated to shining a light on those issues and inspiring the kind of leadership our teams truly deserve. Today, we're going to dive into the concept of bravery in leadership and why I believe that true leadership must be brave. I'll be highlighting 3 specific moments when this bravery must be at its strongest, and we'll explore why not standing up for your team during these critical times is totally unacceptable. So let's start. First, we're going to talk about burnout. Then we're going to talk about promotion time. And last, compensation. So the challenge of burnout. Burnout, it's become a bit of a buzzword, but it is a very real threat that can devastate a team. When workloads pile up and the demands become too much, burnout does set in. It's in these moments that leaders face a critical choice. You can turn a blind eye, or you can stand up for your team. When leaders fail to address burnout, it's not just productivity that suffers, and boy, does productivity suffer. Quality definitely suffers. But trust erodes, morale plummets, and your best people, well, they begin to question their leadership. It's a downward spiral that could have been prevented if you just had the courage to say, enough is enough. Now, I understand this can be tough. It requires a confident leader with an ability to push back in a way that won't hurt their own career. But if you're in a position of leadership, I'm sorry, that is the cost. What happens when you do stand up for your team? When you do push back on unreasonable demands? And you advocate for a balanced workload and prioritization that makes sense? You're not just protecting your team, but you're building trust, you're fostering loyalty, and you're setting your team and the organization up for long-term success. You're showing that you care, and that care will pay dividends in both morale and performance. You have to have the courage to say, I know we've made commitments, but the path we're on, it's just not going to lead to anything that looks like success. Let's change the course. Let's change the direction. If for no other reason, for our people. Let's move on to promotion time. Now, promotion time can be riddled with tension and competition. It's easy for deserving team members to get overlooked, especially in large organizations, where politics can all too often play a bigger role than merit. When leaders don't advocate for their team during promotion time, it sends a clear message. It says, you're on your own. This not only demoralizes your team, but it also diminishes your credibility as a leader. Over time, this lack of support will lead to disengagement and resentment. But if you stand up for your team and you fight for the promotion and recognition, you reinforce a culture of fairness and reward. You demonstrate that hard work and dedication will get noticed and is valued. And this not only boosts individual motivation, but also strengthens your team as a whole. They are putting trust in you. Your people are putting trust in you. Remember what you wanted or what you needed when you were up for promotion. You are the one person in the room fighting for them. You need to think about this deeply. I want you to think about any one of your team members who has worked hard, who is clearly deserving of a promotion, who has gone above and beyond, and you know it. Every person who comes to work and works hard wants to feel appreciated. And many times that appreciation comes in the form, in the corporate world, comes in the form of promotion and compensation. Those are the actions that speak louder than anything else. Those are the things that materialize at home. So when they go home and they feel really good about what they've done during the day, the week, the month, or the year, and the spouse and their spouse says, "What do you think? Is this the year?" And they say, I really do. I've done everything I can possibly do. I think this is my year. I really hope my boss is fighting for me. Competition is fierce, but I really hope my boss is fighting for me. That is a family that is relying on you. This is why I'm so passionate about leadership. It goes so far beyond the office walls, into people's living rooms and their dinner tables. You have the responsibility of other people and their careers in your hands. Now, I know maybe I'm overstating it in some people's minds, but I don't think so. When you are in a position to lead other people, you have a responsibility. If you do not want this responsibility, then you really need to rethink being in a position of leadership. When you take that promotion and people are in your charge, and you took the increased pay, and you took the bigger title, this is why. You're expected to lead people. The best way to lead people successfully is to care about those people. And that comes with putting yourself in tough positions, which means you must be brave, which means when it's promotion time and you have a person who clearly deserves it by all accounts, it's time to get to work. It's time to get to work not for yourself, but for them. It's time to do your homework. It's time to make sure you understand everything they're doing and everything they've done and the value that brings to the organization. It's time to prepare yourself to get into that room with other peers who are going to be fighting for their own people, and position yourself and position your person with the greatest opportunity to come out successful, which means you work on every angle. You work on what they've done, understanding the value, aligning it with the organization's goals. You work on your communication style. You work on your storytelling ability. You work on your ability to inspire. You do all these things. You fight as if it was for yourself. You fight as you wanted your boss to fight for you. You fight for that person. They can't fight once they've done the work and they've done everything they need to do. They are not in those rooms. That is the importance of a leader. They put everything in your hands to go into the room and fight for them. And promotions get lost with lack of fight, by the way. The people making decisions make those decisions sometimes on how hard you're willing to fight. Think about that. Sometimes your person will get promoted because it's super important to you, and you are super important to your leader or the organization or management. And that's another thing. Be excellent at your job. Be excellent as a leader, and your credibility will grow, and you will have more weight in that room. So that's what I mean by doing everything you can do. If you are excellent at your job, if you are a great value to this organization, and you continue to build on that and your credibility grows, when you step in the room, you might have a leg up on your competition, on your peers, because your leader, your manager, management does not want to lose you. They want you to know. They want you to know that they care about what you have to say. They care about what is important to you. That's why people gravitate to the greats. People gravitate to the people who have credibility. People gravitate to the people who are successful because they know, because they're inspired by that person, and they know that that person comes with power and credibility, and they'll be able to go far with them. So when you do all that, and then you do the added stuff, which is you understand what your person is about, you understand their story, you understand the work, you aligned their production to the organization's values, and you can tell that story in an inspiring way, you can win any room. And when you're successful at winning the room and you come out successfully landing a promotion for your person, one of the greatest feelings you're ever going to feel is handing that promotion out. I don't know what it is, but I've handed out raises, I've handed out bonuses. There's no feeling greater than handing out that promotion. I guess it has something to do with the fact that it takes years and years and years to get these promotions many times, and it's It's something that you can go home and you can tell your spouse, I got this promotion I've been working on for 5 years, sometimes even longer. It's your business card changes. It's really something. And oh boy, when you stand up for your team, when you fight for the promotion and recognition, and you reinforce cultures of fairness and reward, boy, that goes a long way. Fight for your team for their promotion, as if it were your own promotion. Similarly, compensation. The other way that people feel action is behind the words of appreciation is their compensation. It's one of the most direct ways to show your team that you value them. But more often than not, leaders shy away from fighting for pay increases, fearing some sort of backlash from upper management of trying to get too much or whatever it might be. But failing to advocate for fair compensation isn't just a missed opportunity, it's a breach of trust, in my opinion. When team members begin to feel like they're underpaid and undervalued, their commitment wanes and their productivity will inevitably drop. Over time, you're going to risk losing your top performers to competitors who are willing to pay them what they're worth. On the other hand, when you stand up for fair compensation, you make a powerful statement. I have your back. I'm willing to fight for you. Everyone knows how hard it is to fight for raises, to fight for increased bonuses. Everybody knows. And so when you come back with something that is considered a fair raise or a fair bonus or fair compensation packages, whatever it might be, people know you fought for that. People know that didn't come easy. It boosts morale. It solidifies your reputation as a leader who values and rewards them. The loyalty and dedication you gain in return is immeasurable. You have to, but once again, it comes down to doing the work. You should be preparing yourself even before the compensation season starts. Know your team, know the value they're bringing, understand where they're compensated, do your homework on industry comparisons. Do not be the leader that has someone on their team come to them and say, I really like working for you. I really like this organization, but I have done my homework. I've heard a few things. And for what I'm doing, I'm 20% under market or whatever it might be. And then you have the necessary conversations and you try to backtrack and try to get them where they need to be. You've already lost some of the trust. They had to do the homework. They had to go bring it up to you. People want to know that their leaders understand them. People want to know that their leaders are fighting for them. And for a lot of people, it's very hard to have the compensation conversation. It's very hard to have the promotion conversation. Most people feel like they show up and they work really hard and they go above and beyond, that it should just be recognized. Now, for those of you out there that are saying to yourself, well, that's just a weakness. Stop it. Just stop it. You should value the fact that people want to be team players. Now, I do believe there is a time and there is a place for you to stand up and say, I deserve to be paid this. I deserve to be promoted. But how great would it be if you recognized it before they came to you? How great would it be to be the leader where your team member feels like, I don't have to have these conversations because I believe if there's $1 on the table to be had, they are going to get it for me. How great would that be? You want to know the kind of loyalty, the kind of sustained performance you're going to achieve when people feel like that? Once again, fight the way you want your manager, leader, boss to fight for you. Think about it like that. You worked hard. You went above and beyond. You know what you're worth. And your leader comes in and says, you worked hard. You went above and beyond. You're a very important part of this organization. And because of that, we've had to look at your compensation and we're increasing it by this percent. Now, I know a bunch of you are going to say to yourselves, yeah, well, that's a nice story. That's nice. But, many times Flat compensation can be considered up compensation depending on the year. We're going to have down years. We're not going to be able to give the nice story every single year. Well, I know that. I'm well aware of that. But when people know that you're fighting for them, when they see you fought for them before, promotion-wise, compensation-wise, workload-wise, they are willing to take the hits. They are willing to absorb the rough years as long as it's not every year. But people do put a heavy price on leadership and culture when they feel like they're part of an environment. They feel like they're part of something. They feel like they're not just a number. They feel like they're not being taken advantage of. They feel like there's care. Take the 3 topics we talked about today. Imagine it just so happens to be a bad market year, happens to be a bad year for the corporation. But you still have these people who are performing phenomenally. Well, it sucks. It sucks because the bad market year, the bad corporate production, it means that it's probably going to be a rough compensation year, especially when these people work their butts off. But how much easier is the conversation when these same people were experiencing burnout and they watched as you listened and they watched as you went and fought and pushed back, reprioritized, changed direction? When these people saw or see that you fight for them when it comes to promotion time, that you win the room more often than not, that you understand their value and you align it to the organization's value, and the organization values you so much that they put a heavier weight on what you think and what you want. When more often than not, they come out with raises because you understand their value and you go to them before they have to go to you. You know how much easier those down or bad years are? Well, they're much easier. They are much easier. I know from experience where I have felt horrible about certain years where I had to communicate and my team took it like a team would take it. I understand, Ed. I understand. It's a tough year, but this is a great team. It almost brings me to tears to recall those memories. People value more than you can even imagine someone who's willing to stand up for them, someone who builds a culture, trust, care. Whew, getting emotional here. Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode. If you are, you might also love my weekly newsletter, The Firestarter. It's packed with 3 to 5 minute reads on leadership, growth, and inspiration. To sign up, just click the link in the description of this episode. Now back to the show. So I'd like to finish today's episode with a short story that I think very relevant to the topic of bravery in leadership. If you know me or if we work together, you'll know that I do enjoy reading. I am constantly reading, trying to get better in all aspects of life. And occasionally I come upon a book that hits me deeply. And if I ever feel like that particular book would help any individual person or people, I will bring in the book or books and hand them out. And one day I was on a business trip in London and I was in my guest office and there was a knock at the door and I waved my colleague in and he said, I know you like to read and I know you will occasionally hand out books to people that you think will help them. And I have a book and I want to know if you've ever read it. And it's called Shackleton's Way, Leadership Lessons from the Great Antarctic Explorer. Have you ever read it? And I hadn't read it. So I said no. And he took the book and he placed it on my desk. And he said, this is a gift from me to you. I really think you're going to enjoy it. I was overwhelmed. That had never happened to me before. I was super grateful that he had thought about me and he had given me something and it was going to be a book on leadership. And I was super pumped to read it. Had a long flight home, obviously, so I started to read it, couldn't put it down. What I would like to do today is just share the story with you. And I do recommend the book. It's the story of Sir Ernest Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer whose leadership in the face of extreme adversity is something we can all learn from. In 1914, Shackleton led the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition with the goal of making the first land crossing of Antarctica, a mission of immense importance to him. This was no small feat. It was a groundbreaking endeavor that would have secured his place in the annals of exploration history. Shackleton was deeply committed to this mission, driven by the desire to achieve something truly extraordinary. But early into the mission, the ship, the Endurance, became trapped in the ice. After trying everything to free the ship, it became clear that they weren't going anywhere. Eventually, the ice crushed the ship, and it sank. Shackleton and his 27 men were left stranded on the ice, far from any hope of rescue. At this critical moment, Shackleton made a decision that showed the depth of his leadership. He immediately abandoned the original mission. Despite the importance of the goal he had set out to achieve, his focus shifted entirely to the survival of his men. He understood that clinging to the original plan would only lead to further disaster. So he adapted, putting the well-being of his men above all else. He kept everyone's morale up by giving them tasks, dividing food equally, and maintaining a sense of fairness and unity. As the ice began to break up, Shackleton faced another critical decision. Realizing that staying on the ice was no longer safe, he led his men into lifeboats and guided them through treacherous waters to reach Elephant Island, a remote, uninhabited land. Reaching the island was a victory, but Shackleton knew they were still far from safety. They needed help, and fast. Shackleton decided to take a small crew of 5 men and set out in a tiny lifeboat to sail 800 miles across one of the most dangerous oceans in the world to reach a whaling station on South Georgia Island. The journey took weeks of navigating through rough seas and brutal conditions, but Shackleton never wavered. His determination to get help and save his men was unshakable. After reaching South Georgia Island, Shackleton and his men discovered they had landed on the wrong side. They were exhausted. They were worn out. Shackleton didn't give up. He and 2 of his men hiked across the island's uncharted mountains to reach the whaling station. It was a grueling trek, but his determination never faltered. In the end, Shackleton was able to return to Elephant Island with a rescue mission, and against all odds, every single member of his crew was saved. Not one man was lost. Shackleton's story, it's a powerful example of what true leadership looks like. He was deeply committed to his mission, but he was even more committed to his men. At every turn, he faced decisions that required him to change course and adapt to new challenges. He never gave up on his men, no matter how dire the situation became. It's a reminder that leadership isn't just about sticking to the original plan. It's about having the courage to change course when necessary, and always, always putting your team's well-being first. I love that story, and I thought it was very relevant to the topic at hand, and I'm super grateful to my colleague, who I will not name and embarrass, who knocked on my door that day and gave me a gift, one of the better gifts I've received during my career. Leadership must be brave. Bravery in leadership isn't just about making bold decisions. It's about consistently showing up for your team when it matters most, whether it's pushing back against burnout, advocating for promotions, or fighting for fair compensation. Your actions or your inactions speak volumes. When leaders fail to stand up for their teams, the fallout is real. Lost trust, diminished productivity, and fractured organizations. And that, my friends, is totally unacceptable. But when you do show up, when you fight for your team with the same tenacity that Shackleton showed in the Antarctic, you not only protect your team, but you also earn their unwavering loyalty and trust. And that's the foundation of any truly great leader and organization. So let's commit to being the brave leaders our teams deserve. Thank you, my friends, for joining me on another episode of Totally Unacceptable. If you are enjoying these episodes, please do share them with others who might benefit. And don't forget to head over to LinkedIn and look for me, the Inspired Fire Guy, where I share valuable leadership insights and inspiration every single day. Give me a follow and let's continue this journey together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep leading bravely.